At heart, we are a mobile GIS company. We help mainly natural gas utility companies map new installations of pipe and fittings that are going in the ground. And I think what makes us a little bit different than some of the other customers that have talked today is that we really are a solutions provider going out and solving problems that other people have. And another thing that makes us unique is that we are a pretty small team. We're a team of 10 right now, and we really don't have any developers on staff. More than 50% of our team are GIS educated individuals. And so the way that we've really looked at iForm Builder is a way that we can have a bunch of smart people take a technology out of the box, do a lot of Googling and a lot of Stack Overflowing, and really try to build a solution without having to pay the high dollars to have somebody sit on our staff, especially right now when we're still pretty young. We're just about 2 years old. So the fact that iForm Builder has been able to help us integrate these solutions without the need to have somebody hold our hand or build a lot of custom solutions has been really, really powerful. So kind of like I said before, we work in the natural gas space, and the reason that we went to iForm Builder is that we really needed to extend our existing platform and also help to kind of tie together pieces of information from different applications. So unlike some of the other groups that talk today where you are using iForm and building GIS features, or you are taking iForm data and sort of spinning it off into your GIS application to create features, we have a mobile mapping product that we've had somebody else develop for us that does the job that we need to do really, really well. What it doesn't do well is inspections and other just form-related gathering of data, the replacement of paper forms that has to supplement that GIS data which is getting created. So this kind of puts into a big picture what we are, and really what we started at is that bottom little graphic there about mapping installations. Federal regulations have come out that is telling these people that they need to do a lot better job of tracking the stuff that they put in the ground, because research has shown that the vast majority of incidents in the natural gas space are because some sort of failure of the material that's been in the ground, whether that's an actual manufacturing defect, something that's happened, or whether it's something that's happened with the way that the pipe was actually installed in the ground. So that's how everything started. But then we start going to these utility companies and they're like, but I need to do this and this and this and this, and it's all at the same time that I'm mapping the stuff. There's so many other things that I need to do. Can you help us do those things too? And so we're like, sure, we'd love to help you do those things. But at the end of the day, we're still a pretty small shop. And so we end up creating these one-off solutions which become products over time. But at the end of the day, we still need to integrate these things all back together and deliver a unified product back to the customer. So the heart of our mapping product is a barcode scanner. These industry regulations have come out and said, you need to track these different types of pieces of information, and here's the way that you're going to do it. Manufacturers are going to supply a barcode on every pipe and every fitting that they manufacture, and it's going to contain all these pieces of information that you need to know. And wouldn't it be cool if you could just scan that barcode and do something with it, right? Rather than the old school, select what type of feature I'm about to create, bunch of drop-down lists, what my attributes are, who made it, where it came from, what size it is, that kind of thing. Why not use barcode scanning? And so this is one of the first ways that we look to iForm Builder to help us. So this is a little bit about what I was just talking about with these industry regulations, and it's called the ASTM F2897 standard. And what it does is it tells manufacturers of plastic pipe exactly what they need to provide on the assets themselves. And it's basic traceability information, manufacturer, lot number, production date, material, that kind of stuff. And they're going to do it in the 16-digit alphanumeric barcode, whether that's your old school code 128 barcodes like what's on all the stuff at the grocery store, or whether it's a QR code, it doesn't really matter, but they need to supply that information and it needs to be readable with a barcode scanner. So our product scans that barcode and it creates a GIS feature for you automatically and populates all that information. You don't have to know anything about that feature that you're putting in the ground. You don't even have to know what it is. You scan the barcode, it creates the feature for you. But the problem that we're having right now is that right now, only 70% of vendors who are making this stuff actually are putting these barcodes on the pipe. These rules are sort of stepped in implementation. So right now, there's a little bit of the rule in play, but 2 years from now, you're going to need to have 100% vendor compliance. But right now, it's just not there. So how do we have our customers map this stuff out and use our technology to its fullest potential if there's no barcodes on the stuff that they're getting right now? We know that someday they will, and that's where we want it to be, but how do we go about allowing them to create these barcodes, right? So in Steps iForm Builder. And the process to create this 16-digit code is actually rather complicated. It uses this base 62 conversion algorithms, which is all this math and mumbo jumbo on the left, to take these different pieces from a lookup table and stick them into a 16-digit alphanumeric code. And so what we were able to do is build a really simple iForm app that allows them to pick drop-downs from a list. Where did it come from? When was it manufactured? All that kind of stuff. And with a bunch of JavaScript behind the scenes that you don't see here, it's creating that barcode that's at the bottom by all those different things that you've put in there. And so we've got people in warehouses, in trucks in the field. When they pull equipment to be used on a job site, they'll go through and they'll barcode all these things. And so once you save your form, the next screen that you see is a spot where you can print it. And so we connect to a Bluetooth printer, and it prints out a plastic barcode label that they can stick on the pipe. And then they use our mapping solution to go forward and map it and all that kind of stuff. So yes, it was JavaScript, and no, we don't have developers, but literally using Google and other forums that are out there, our GIS staff was able to put this logic into an iForm app with very little help from the iForm team. Yeah, here and there it was like, well, how is this supposed to function? Here's how it's supposed to function. And then you do some Googling and you figure out how to make it work. And it's been really, really successful for us. And so then on the flip side, we were having some customers say, well, some of the stuff that I'm getting in the warehouse, I got a recall, or I need to go back, I need to double check what these barcodes say, and there's no easy way for me to look at that. Do you have any way that we could scan the barcode and have it tell us all the different pieces of information about it? We're like, well, sure, I guess that's just the opposite of what we created before, right? Decoding that information instead of encoding it. And so in comes the Manatee SDK, which allowed us to integrate barcode scanning in to simply scan one of those barcodes and just supply that information on a page so that somebody could easily see what that information looks like. And then after we built this solution, we're like, well, this is awesome because we do all this QA/QC on our application before it goes out to a customer. And one of our biggest things is when you scan a barcode, is the right information going back into the database? And so this has become an internal tool that we can use. So when we scan a barcode, we can scan it with this app. It tells us exactly what's there, and we can double check on both sides and make sure that everything is good to go. So for quite a while, we were using the iForm app with the Manatee integration, but we've just gone through the process of actually purchasing those licenses, getting it into our applications so that on the App Store and the Google Play Store, we have our apps up there now with the barcoding integration in it, which is pretty cool for us. So this is a quick just shot of really our application, and that's the one that's there on the right, but it connects with the Bluetooth barcode scanner, scans it, creates GIS features. And so this is that kind of way that we used iForm Builder to supplement that existing solution that we have. So going back to the infographic you saw earlier of all these different products which we've been created, that's great that we can create these different things, but can we create a unified deliverable to give back to a client? And amongst all this other stuff, we started building out all these inspection forms and all these other things that they can use to supplement the mapping product. And so now it's a question of how do we tie all this stuff together? So we call Ryan and say, Ryan, I really need reports. And then Z is like, that's your problem, right? But no, that's not what happened. But really, that's what it was. They said, well, you need to kind of figure out how to do that. That's kind of where we leave and you pick up. And so we say, well, what does that mean? Well, use the API. I would love to use the API, but I don't have staff members that can do that, right? I would love to hire a consultant to do that, but we do a lot of pilot projects, and it's really hard to build in these big costs into these projects that we do until we know for sure that we're going to get these high-dollar projects that we can really, truly build some of this integration into. So it becomes a question of how we really start to tie all these pieces of information together. So this kind of talks about these inspection forms, and we've started to do this a lot because they call it this full as-builting process where you go out and you put all this stuff in the ground, but you got to do other stuff too. You got to inspect it, all this other stuff. And in the end, it needs to be a digital packet of information that's GIS data and inspection data and all this other stuff that goes back to the client. So it became very clear to us that after we started building these forms, that was great. It was exactly what they wanted, but how do I get this data back? How do I use this data? How do I analyze this data? That kind of stuff. So that's when we really started to think about what do we have to do on the integration side. So what's the problem? Well, one, we don't really have access to the iForm databases as they stand, right? And we can't use the API to do it because we don't have a web developer to help us. And then, like we've heard all day, the database just isn't in the right format, right? I need to get it some other way. You have a lot of this long spreadsheet style data, but really I need to get it into a lot of records in just a few rows, a pivot table type of analogy. So how do we make that happen? So we come to iForm Builder, we're like, well, how do we solve this problem? And they said, well, we have this technology which we've used before, and really the vast majority of our clients use the API now, but maybe this would work for you. And so what we decided to implement was a replicated MySQL slave that goes from the iForm Builder cloud to our Amazon cloud infrastructure. So essentially what that is we open up MySQL Workbench and we see hundreds of tables that are all of our forms, our subforms, our option lists, all that kind of stuff. And now we have the ability to start really working with that data without having to get it into our system in some other way. Now the problem comes up with, well, does anybody here know how to write SQL, right? Well, yes, sort of. I guess we can figure it out. But SQL's that type of thing. Well, it's a pretty readable language, right? And once you start kind of learning how to do something, doing some simple joins, that kind of stuff, it's not that difficult to work with. So what do we need to do? We need to create a lot of views. We need to create a lot of tables. We need to change the way that data is structured, and then really start to work with that data. And then at the end of the day, how do we give that back to the clients? And what we found was that Tableau, like Bayer in the last group, was a really great way for us to do that. And then after all that's said and done, it's not just iForm Builder, it's not just GIS data, it's all these other things that we have to eventually integrate to, and Tableau helps us do that, but it's not really the best kind of integrator. And so I get to the end of this slide here, and I think back to a couple weeks ago when I was starting to put this together, and then I think about 3 hours yesterday that I spent with Amol and Ryan going over my bucket list of all the stuff we wanted to do, and then all the stuff we hear today, and I've realized that I've just made this giant pitch for Gnosis, I think, which is kind of funny. You guys are welcome, but this really is it's the struggle that we had. It's the exact struggle that Z talked about in his presentation this morning. Probably here are the struggles. How do you get all this information back together? How do you do it through a GUI that you can kind of have someone help facilitate you to do this so you don't have to spend a lot of money hiring somebody who can do that for you if you don't have that resource available to you, right? So that was the plan. I got a couple of screenshots here of just really what this MySQL slave looks like. And when you take a look at this database, it's huge, right? And every table that you've got there is every form, every subform, every option list. And then we looked at this, we're like, what the heck is all this stuff, right? And so it was a lot of work for us to go through and open up tables, look at parent keys, look at child keys, see what that relationship is. And then from there, you got to start building all these custom views which start to take this different pieces of information in and really make it usable, right? Something that we could feed into Tableau to really make sense of the data. This last one here is sort of a master table that we make, and it's like combining probably 30 different tables between forms and subforms together. And it's something that we have to run early morning because it takes 30 minutes to run. And it's not really that optimized because we're not really DBAs, right? We don't have any DBAs on staff, and so it works, but it takes a long time to run, so we have to run it in the middle of the morning, and we can't run it a couple times during the day and give you near real-time data because it takes too long to run and it totally taxes our server. So while it works, we have some struggles too, and we got to really be careful about how we go about implementing it so our business can still run during the day. These are some views of Tableau, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of things here in that once you get these tables into Tableau, it becomes a very pivot table-like environment where you have all your different columns and stuff on the left, and you can start doing calculations and things like that. And you can also write more SQL in Tableau. And so now we have this sort of hybrid solution where we create a bunch of views in the MySQL database, and then we also do some stuff in Tableau, and then we forget which place we've done which thing, and it works. It certainly works, but it's not the best way. It truly isn't the best way to do it. And this just kind of highlights a little bit how in iForm Builder, when you see these tables, you have these long tables with lots and lots and lots of columns, but that's not really the way that you want to look at it. You want to take that and flip it around, kind of swap your axes almost. And we do a lot of that on the Tableau side because they provide some pretty easy user interfaces to help sort of massage that data a little bit more. So I wanted to just pull up a couple of real examples here. So this is our Tableau site, sort of branded to our own brand, and I've linked right to a specific view, if you will. But we create these different workbooks that our clients have that take several different types of analytics and put them together in like jobs or things that they want to look at and that kind of stuff. I like this type of view because our clients have said, okay, so once we collect all this data, how do I go back and I look at those forms? Well, we could send them to the iForm website integrated side and have them log in and stuff, but then it's a training piece and it's one more person that's going into that environment and looking at all this stuff, and we're really trying to push this uniform solution that is 100% branded by us, and it wasn't just the cleanest way for us to deliver that data. So we were able to create just really simple dashboards that let you easily filter data. So on the right-hand side, there's all these different ways that you can change what you're looking at here. And this particular view happens to be unsuccessful inspections. There was something about the inspection that wasn't right, and somebody's going to have to go back out and look at something. And this allows you to just scale through down and look at those different things. And then they're like, okay, this is great. I can see my tabular data, but can't I get a PDF report, right? And we're like, well, how do we create a PDF report? And then we start looking at report creators and all that kind of stuff. And then we think, well, that's great, but what happens when somebody goes out and then changes one of these forms? We have to regenerate another report? How does that work? And so what we've done up to this point is we have, in our SQL views, built out URL strings that eventually link back to the iForm PDF. So by taking the form ID and then the record ID, we're able to build this URL via our views in MySQL, which just end up loading for you the straight iForm PDFs that you're used to seeing. So on that same view, then they can go back and use that integration to look and see their pictures and signatures and all that kind of stuff. But we really didn't have to do any custom development. We didn't have to buy any other products. And so just these ways that we've been able to sort of manipulate data and sort of give it back to a customer in a different way has been really useful for us. This is an example of a more dashboard view that a supervisor would log in and look at. And so these load times vary drastically depending on where they're pulling data from and how much of the SQL has to be done in Tableau versus in a view versus if we generate the table in the morning. So we find ourselves first using views, and then once the data gets too big, then we got to switch and create tables in the middle of the night, and it's just not the best workflow, but it certainly works. But this allows a supervisor to go in and really see all sorts of different stuff. And so here you can see just different inspectors that you have, and you can immediately see there are some inspectors which have a lot more issues with them, or the work that they do has a lot more problems, something like that. And we've already found that our customers have been getting a lot of insight into the crews, the contractors, the inspectors that they have reviewing their work, just by being able to quickly look at this data in what is real near time. So it's pretty powerful for our customers to be able to look at all this kind of stuff. And so here's an example, most failed tasks, right? These are all subforms within one of our main forms, and where are the places that they need to look next? What should they be spending the most time training on? That kind of stuff. It's these things that they can look at immediately, not next month, not after somebody takes data and gets it together for them. These are things that they can look at today and tomorrow and really make decisions with because they can see this data really, really quickly. So this last one is the same type of thing, and just like in inspections by activity, and just one more way that we sort of break down data and allow you to take a look at it. But so these literally are just showing record submissions by job type. And so we can look here and see It's a good way for us to look at it and know that our customers are using the application, right? Like they're using it like we expect them to be using, and we can look at day to day, month to month, exactly what they're doing and make sure that they're out there doing what they need to do. So it helps us maintain a good relationship with our customers and make sure we stay ahead of the game, because we look at this data in real time too, and we have the ability to stop a problem before it happens, that kind of thing. So some lessons learned. By leveraging similar technologies like the barcoding, we have a way on the front end to tie together several different solutions in a near seamless fashion, that someone is able to create barcodes and stick them on something, and then they use another application to take that barcode in. And it's been really great for us, especially because a lot of these activities occur in different spots. And so somebody using an iPad in a warehouse is not a problem when you got someone else in the field that's using an Android application to do something else. It's been pretty convenient for us. So the second point, the ability to manipulate the raw iForm Builder data is extremely powerful. The fact that you can take a look at that data, do something with it, shape it, move it around, is almost an absolute must-have. So what we learned is it's very time-consuming to write and to process all of those SQL queries, especially when you don't have a DBA on staff. Like it's difficult. We can always make it happen. It always takes more time than we think it's going to. And this is one of the biggest points here is on the next one, that even though we have this MySQL slave and we can grab all this data from it and do cool stuff, it still really needs a DBA to be able to help optimize the queries, to do repetitive tasks and that kind of thing. We've had a couple times where the slave connection has broken and we haven't been receiving updated information from the cloud. And so we're like, Amol, why does that happen? He's like, well, you broke it. I'm like, well, okay. And then we talk about this processing time. Why does it take so much time to process some of the stuff? You're like, well, after you create these views, are you properly indexing them? It's like, no, but that sounds like a great idea. So it's stuff like that even though we have it, we're not DBAs. And then it's been great up until now, and I can scale a Amazon instance as I need to for more processing power. But at some point in time, these things are going to get so big that I'm not going to be able to maintain that anymore, or I'm not going to be able to project and forecast what that is, right? So that's a big problem. And then we still need another tool to combine our data sets back into one, because Tableau is just one delivery mechanism for us. We really want to be able to take information from these different systems and provide them back into a unified spot and give them in some other way. And so all of these struggles that we've had and all the things that we need to do, I mean, it really seems like Gnosis is a tool that is going to help us accomplish a lot of these things. One of the biggest portions being the need to kind of get past the MySQL slave and leverage the API, but do so maybe in a way that we don't have to bring a developer on. And then two, just the scalability of a solution from the database side. The fact that somebody else can worry about that and it can happen somewhere else and I can just consume that data and work with it, that's gonna make it super helpful for us. So that's it.